When I see you dancing, I'm like, hola, 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 hola. With your move fancy, make me wanna hola, 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 hola. I got your attention, spending that moolah, 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 moolah. I'm a drop popping, pocket, swola, 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 swola.
You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristadoulou.
Swola, 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 swola.
All right, everybody. Do we have one hell of a show for you guys today? It is April 29th, 2021. It is the day of the NFL draft. We have 2 hours and 59 minutes until the NFL kicks off round one of the NFL draft. We have been anxiously awaiting this now for months since the Super Bowl ended. It has been a slow few weeks, and then up until the last week or so, things have started to pick up. It's been getting a little bit crazy, and then today it feels like it's pouring outside right now, and let me tell you, it is pouring in the NFL, and when it rains, it pours. I mean, man, so much to talk about. What are the 49ers doing? What is going on with that number 3 pick? Aaron Rodgers, and some big news with him wanting out of Green Bay. I mean, there is so much for us to talk about today. I cannot wait to get into it all with you guys. So, first things first, before we kick the show off, I want to ask you guys question of the day. This is just an open-ended one for your fans out there rooting for your favorite team. My question to you all today: what would you like your team to do in the first round of the NFL draft tonight, the 2021 NFL draft? It seems like pretty much the first 2 picks are guaranteed, and then from then on, nobody really knows what else is going on, because at this point, nobody even knows what the 49ers are doing anymore. It sounded like at first they were bought in on the Mac Jones thing, and now it could be Mac Jones, it could be Trey Lance. Some people think they might just be outright bluffing, and it's going to be Justin Fields. Who knows what's going on there? And there's some other reports about the 49ers potentially not even wanting to pick at number 3, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, with the question out of the way, again, what would you like to see your favorite team do in round 1? Would you like to see them trade up for somebody? Would you like to see them trade back? Is there somebody that you think will be there at their selection in the draft? What do you want to see them do? Now, getting into the very big breaking news of the day, we're just going to jump right into this conversation. If you have not already heard about it, it has come out per Adam Schefter that the reigning MVP, Aaron Rodgers, no longer wants to be in Green Bay, and apparently he's been relaying this to them the entire offseason. Now, it is no surprise to anyone that he's been disgruntled. Obviously, this stems all the way back to the NFL draft from last year, when Aaron Rodgers was very optimistic that they were potentially going to bring in a wide receiver. You know, people felt they were like a piece or two short in the playoffs the year prior, losing into San Francisco, and then they ended up drafting and trading up, not even just drafting, but trading up for Jordan Love in the first round last year. And then on top of that, they ended up being just a few plays short of making it to the Super Bowl again this year. And the frustration from that, just deciding to not really bolster, it was pretty much the same team. And Aaron Rodgers just played on another level. Whether he played on with a chip on his shoulder or not, I mean, who's to say really? But he played the best football you could have asked from a quarterback. He won the MVP. He was the best quarterback this past season, without a doubt, in my opinion. So, from Adam Schefter, we'll go over the tweet real quick here. I'll pull it down at the bottom of the screen for you guys to see. Adam Schefter himself said, reigning MVP Aaron Rodgers is so disgruntled with the Green Bay Packers that he has told some within the organization that he does not want to return to the team, a league and team source told ESPN earlier today. That is huge, because up until this point, no one really understood why Aaron Rodgers did not have a deal settled with Green Bay yet. Green Bay has kind of come out here and there. Gunta Kuntz the other day was saying that Aaron Rodgers is our guy, and I brought this up during what was it, on Monday's show. I was saying, he is their guy for at least the foreseeable future, like within the next couple of years or so. And I said that keyword, those couple of years, in that statement. That didn't sit well with me, because when you think of that, couple means 2 by definition. And when you look at his contract, it ends in a couple of years. So it felt like, okay, maybe they really aren't committal, and they're just saying this stuff to maybe appease Aaron Rodgers. But it sounds like this hasn't even been even remotely appeasing him in the least. On top of that, apparently the Packers have been aware of his feelings and they're concerned with it. They've sent out Mark Murphy, GM Brian Gutekunst has gone out there, and head coach Matt LaFleur have all gone out and had personal one-on-one sit downs, spent time with him to discuss, the team and just kind of where they are and everything. And it just seems like Rodgers has stood his ground the entire time and has been flat out just, no, I do not want to come back to Green Bay. It's been reported that the Rams tried to trade for him before they went after Matthew Stafford, some other teams. There was a report earlier today that kind of came out of nowhere in left field, and it seems like this has kind of spun into the news that we're talking about right now, and we'll get into it a little bit more later, but the 49ers were calling on Wednesday about him, so it seems like everyone's obviously understood how disgruntled Aaron Rodgers is, but it seems like there's even more to how disgruntled he actually is. And this is just unbelievable news, if you ask me. All the networks are going nuts about it. Apparently, Rodgers has been unhappy with a variety of reasons, obviously the draft being one of the big pieces of that. On top of that, apparently the Packers have tried to extend the contract of Aaron Rodgers. This is from Adam Schefter himself. So apparently Green Bay has been reaching out, and again, Rodgers has just stood his ground and flat out been like, no, I don't want to come back to Green Bay. And with everything that's gone on, I mean, I feel like I'm like firing a million miles a minute right now because I'm like trying to wrap my head around this all. They have not committed to Rodgers the way they've needed to. And when I say that, I mean just building a legitimate team around him that he can thrive with. All they have on the offense is Davante Adams and Aaron Jones. And granted, Davante Adams, arguably one of the best wide receivers in the league. Aaron Jones is a fantastic fit for the system they have there. And playing in that system, he had 17 touchdowns the year prior to this past season. So he was a fantastic back as well. But outside of those two pieces, he's throwing to third string and fourth string wide receivers who are playing in the spots that they shouldn't be. And on top of that, I mean, their tight end position, Robert Tonyan, I mean, was he solid for them? But I'm on the side that I believe Aaron Rodgers elevated Tonyan and made him look better than he actually is. So, I can understand his frustration. They were so close to making it to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Obviously, the defense came up really short. Everyone thought that they were going to kind of reload and retool the defense going into that last year's draft. That obviously did not really, I mean, they did some changes schematically and things like that, and the defense did improve, but they were also missing a piece or two on the offensive side. They didn't go after that, and I don't think that they went after defense as well as they should have, because ultimately they ended up losing the playoff game to the Bucs this year, 31-24. Your defense still allowed 31 points in that championship game, and at the end of the day, defense does win championships. That's literally, that adage is as old as the NFL is, it feels like at this point. A couple other things that came up, though. Something noted by Ian Rappaport. He said himself, "Here is my understanding of the Aaron Rodgers situation," and this was him on Twitter. "Rodgers and the Packers have been negotiating a long-term contract offer, and they've been working on it for weeks. Rodgers has been unhappy at times during the negotiations, and no deal is done, and he's not happy about it right now." That's not completely the quote-unquote, but if you want to go on Twitter and see what he said, you can definitely find exactly quote for quote, but I mixed a few words up here and there. And then on top of that, he also went on to say, over the last month, Aaron Rodgers had his agent Dave Dunn fly out to Green Bay for several days of meetings to work through the situation. Rodgers refused to restructure his deal, and that, to me, I mean, he's the most valuable player in the NFL. I don't really see how you can go to him and force him to restructure his contract and take away money from him. He literally just won the MVP award. On top of that, he wanted an extension. Teams called knowing he's not happy. Green Bay has rebuffed everybody that has called them. And then on top of that, they offered an extension eventually, but no deal. And I feel like by the time they finally got an extension out to him, it was probably just too late. I mean, what a mess. I said this the other day when I was talking about the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers on Monday. And I mean, again, just what a mess. You have the best quarterback in the league last year. He was the MVP. Say what you want about everybody else. He played that position better than everybody else in the league. And somehow you're in this situation where you have him wanting to leave and you can't commit to him. You can't build a team around him. I just don't get it. I do not understand this whole situation. Packers GM Brian Gutekunst told ESPN, apparently after this all came out, as we've stated, since the season ended, we are committed to Aaron in 2021 and beyond. Aaron has a vital part of our success, and we look forward to competing for another championship with him leading our team. Well, based off of everything that's going on, I really don't know if that's going to be the case. But, I mean, this leads us to so many questions because Green Bay is saying one thing, but their actions are saying another. It sounds like Aaron Rodgers has just been flat out telling them no for God who knows even how long now at this point. I mean, what a shitstorm you've got to say this whole thing has turned into. So a few of the questions I just kind of put together because I want to think these out with you guys here. What does this mean for Green Bay? What the heck did they do? I mean, and on top of that, who leaked this? Those are the first two things that really came to my mind here. As far as leaking goes, I almost feel like this came from Green Bay because the GM had a response ready to the whole thing, like off the cuff. I want to say that they've probably been they got frustrated with the whole situation towards the end of it. Like they've tried to make themselves look like, you know, they're trying to take care of Aaron Rodgers, and now they're trying to spin it as, oh, well, he's not being responsive. But unfortunately, in this situation, the Green Bay Packers have looked like absolute doofuses for the last year now, going back to when they traded up for Jordan Love, because it sounds like he hasn't looked too well going through practices. That's stuff that came out throughout the season. Aaron Rodgers just had an MVP caliber season. Honestly, like a career year for him at this point, the way you look at it when you break down the numbers. So, I mean, I have the feeling that Green Bay was probably behind this whole story finally leaking because they've been trying is what it sounds like, and they're just not getting anywhere with Rodgers, and maybe their frustration has finally boiled over. I mean, on top of that, what do they do now going into this draft? We're literally less than 3 hours away from the NFL draft. Where do you go from here? If this was the Packers leaking this, then it doesn't help them. So I don't know if it's them, but I almost feel like it was them because it seems like a team frustrated trying to make it look like they're trying to work with the player and he's being difficult. But that's not how this situation could have ever been spun, because Rodgers has been kind of like shorted the entire time the last year with Green Bay. And then on top of that, if it's Rodgers, I mean, man, has he put like his chips on the table and put Green Bay in a position, because at this point, with this coming out, we have 2 hours and about 47 minutes till the draft starts. Teams are going to see this. What if, I was watching ESPN and Dan Orlovsky brought this up. What if the Jets are just like, you know what? We want to try to put together a team, and, you know, Aaron Rodgers, he's probably playing for at least another 5 years if he's happy. That's the way I see it. I think athletically and physically, he still has it. I think he can make it another 4 or 5 years for sure. If you're the Jets, you give them your 5 first-round picks you have going in from now until 2023. That sounds like a lot, but Matthew Stafford just went for 3 first-rounders. So what the hell are you going to give up for Aaron Rodgers? It's got to be 4 or 5 first-rounders. So if you're the Jets, you could do that. He does not have a no-trade clause. So, like, realistically, the Packers could deal him anywhere if the price is right. You know, so another team like the Miami Dolphins, if they were willing to maybe send over Tua, I don't know if Green Bay's even interested in Tua, but you could package Tua with the 4 first-rounders that they have. Like, there are teams out there that have the capital to move Aaron Rodgers, and the fact that he has no trade clause, like, this makes things really interesting. I was talking about this yesterday, and I should have pulled out my notes from the show on Monday. I talked about how much money it would cost to move him, but realistically, if they trade him, it's not as bad with dead cap money. You spread it over 2 years. It's really not that bad based off how his money works in his contract. I wish I had the exact numbers up or written it down here. I didn't think to do that, but it's a very strong possibility that Aaron Rodgers ends up being traded within the next few hours or so. Do I think it's going to happen? If I was to make a prediction, I would say probably not, but there is definitely a possibility that the 49ers just tried on Wednesday to call the Packers and they straight up asked them, you know, like, are you guys willing to move Aaron Rodgers? There was no formal offer put in, but they did ask. That was something that got reported earlier today, and we'll get into a little more detail with that later, but I mean, there is so many possibilities with this whole Aaron Rodgers situation, and I cannot wait to see what happens in these next few hours. I'm like half nervous that I'm going to look over to my right here and something will have happened and I'll have completely missed it. I literally have Twitter up and open, and I'm just going to keep refreshing it every now and again to see if I'm missing anything. But I mean, just like this whole situation with Aaron Rodgers has just completely exploded. I was talking a bit about it on Monday and, feeling like the Packers just weren't committed to Aaron Rodgers, and it sounds like maybe after all of the, how upset they realized he was, they were trying to patch it up, but like too little too late, man. Too little too late. What do you even do? Oh, man, I'm so glad I am not a fan of the Packers. Like, how stressful. And they could have gotten so much for Aaron Rodgers earlier in the offseason. And it just doesn't make sense because you go up and draft a guy like Jordan Love, but you're so unwilling to trade Aaron Rodgers. What the hell was the point of trading up into the first round for a quarterback last year if you were high enough to trade up for him, but you weren't high, or you're not high enough now to just send Aaron Rodgers off for a good price and then run with your first round pick? Like, the whole thing does not make sense, and it almost feels like the Packers realize now we screwed up last year's draft, and they're like scrambling to pick up the pieces. But good luck to them. I'm very interested in seeing how that turns out in a few hours. I wonder if he's going to get moved. That would be absolutely insane and breaking news for the draft. I would love to see a draft day trade tonight where Aaron Rodgers is getting moved to somewhere that needs a quarterback. That would be absolutely insane. As far as some other news going on, player news, actually, Tim Tebow it wasn't officially announced, but it came out as a report that Tim Tebow has recently worked out, not as a quarterback, but as a tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. A tight end. This is the very position that people were telling him back when he was in the NFL he should consider moving to. I mean, the guy's big. He's built like a tight end. This picture that I have here to my left, I thought was a perfect picture for this little piece here because is this what we're going to see? Tight ends are allowed to wear some of those lower numbers. I believe their numbers are, I don't remember the exact numbers they have, but I think it matches what wide receivers can wear. So this is realistically, in a Jacksonville Jaguars uniform, this is exactly what we could be seeing of Tim Tebow. He's 33 years old, but he didn't take the beating, I guess, that a normal NFL player does. He has been active playing other sports. He just retired from baseball, so I mean, he could still, he's in very good shape. He's, game ready per se to an extent. Maybe not quite NFL ready to get himself back in, but he could get himself ready to go. Apparently, he reached out to them about the whole thing, but the Jaguars have internally discussed potentially bringing in Tim Tebow as a tight end. This is one of those things where I could definitely see them taking him in for the offseason and through training camp just to kind of see how he does and performs. But man, would that be an interesting thing to see Tim Tebow make a comeback after however many years he's been gone and playing tight end on the Jacksonville Jaguars, catching passes from Trevor Lawrence. I mean that's just a wild sight. But number 15, Tim Tebow, potentially coming back into the NFL wearing a Jaguars uniform. What do you guys think about that one? That's pretty interesting if you ask me. Now, outside of specifically player news, my notes are a complete mess here right now. So the 49ers, a lot has been talked about them for the last, honestly, since they traded up to the number 3 pick. I feel like them trading the number 3 pick or for the number 3 pick has caused a massive hysteria through the rest of the NFL draft because nobody seems to know what's going on. From what it sounds like, they were initially all in on Mac Jones, and then they started doing their research on Trey Lance, and now it's just, they weren't up until earlier today sure who they were going to take, and now it sounds like they have a decision made, and only John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan know. So 2 people in that organization know who's officially going to be coming to the 49ers through this draft, and I'm excited to see how that works out. But as far as the numerous reports that these guys have been involved in, it came out yesterday that apparently it was reported that the Patriots were negotiating Jimmy G's contract with them in the potential idea that they could get a deal done to trade him back to New England. That was something that came out yesterday. But then I've been reading and we'll keep going through this and I'll talk about that a little bit more because there's a few more things I saw about it. But there were also conflicting reports from insiders earlier today saying that this is from Tom Pelissero, that multiple teams are supposed to be inquiring today about a potential deal for Jimmy Garoppolo, who does kind of have a little bit of control over the fate of his move because he does have the no trade clause, but no talks on a restructured contract have come up elsewhere. So, what is the truth behind that? Am I misunderstanding that? Is that there, like, because I don't know if that was him saying that nobody has done any contract restructuring anywhere, or if that's just nobody outside the Patriots. I took that as nobody is having that conversation with the 49ers. So I don't really know. I don't really understand that whole piece because I remember hearing about that yesterday and then seeing that earlier today. I mean, there's so many conflicting reports right now for everything regarding the 49ers. It's like your head is spinning trying to wrap your head around it. As far as what I have Garoppolo pinned as for a trade, I think he's worth somewhere around a second or third round pick. I know that some people are saying the 49ers won't take anything less than a first rounder, but at this point, it almost feels like they're just kind of playing a game of chicken with everybody else and seeing what they can get. But I think they're only hurting themselves here. They should have got rid of Jimmy G a while ago, earlier in the offseason, before the whole free agency period started, and I think they could have nailed that first round pick. At this point, I'm thinking they're going to get a second or third rounder for him. The only real way that I see a first round pick being done is it's a conditional. So it's a second round pick that becomes a first if whatever team trades for him, if it's New England or somebody else trades for him, and they, let's say, I think Carson Wentz is he has to play 75% of the snaps for the Colts second round pick to become a first round pick if Carson Wentz works out for them. So I would say it's going to be along those similar lines, 75, 80% of snaps, or maybe the team has to make the playoffs with him as QB under center. So, I mean, that's a complete mixed bag of reports. But for me personally, if anyone's paying a first round for Jimmy G, you're making a mistake. Garoppolo's a good quarterback. I would not say he's worth a first round pick, in my opinion. That's strictly my opinion. Am I wrong? I don't know. But I personally don't think he should be valued that high. Outside of that, this was something I kind of touched on with the whole Green Bay Packers thing, and this is what I think kind of started the whole fire with the Aaron Rodgers stuff. It was reported earlier today by Bill Michaels that the 49ers had reached out to the Packers about trading for Aaron Rodgers, offering the third pick, Jimmy G, and other draft picks and players for the MVP player. So that sounded a little outlandish to me. I wasn't sure about all the players. I could definitely understand a treasure trove of picks, but I don't think that the 49ers have the firepower of picks to trade for Aaron Rodgers. I think, like I said, Matthew Stafford went for 3 first rounders and some odd picks after that. Aaron Rodgers just won the MVP. He's got to be at least 4 first rounders, maybe 5. And the only realistic options I see trading for him are the Jets, if they want to give up the 5 first round picks they have in the next 3 years, or the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are the only other team that I could realistically think of that would work well for this situation. And on top of that, the Dolphins are a little bit more playoff ready, in my opinion. They were 10-6 last year. You bring in Aaron Rodgers to that team, and you hit on your draft picks that you do have after that trade, things look really, really well for the Dolphins. So the Jets, the Dolphins are, in my opinion, the two more realistic players in that trade. But again, it remains to be seen. Green Bay might just completely ignore this whole thing that has just come out and not trade Aaron Rodgers at all going through this draft. But I think you cut your losses, and honestly, I mean, put your money where your mouth is if you're Green Bay and you're really looking to move him, because you have teams calling the 49ers and other teams that have called about him. You traded up for that first round pick. Listen to what the 49ers are offering. They're putting you in a position to not only have Jordan Love, but I mean, you could be the one drafting one of these quarterbacks that everyone seems to be going nuts for now. So the 49ers, I mean, they do have a good motive because they're like, hey, what is it? Trevor Lawrence. I keep wanting to say Trey Lawrence. Oh my goodness. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson will be off the board, but then you can pick between, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and Justin Fields to Green Bay. And then Green Bay could, I mean, ultimately maybe flip Jordan Love for something. I don't know. Like, I don't think anyone's even that high on Jordan Love. Like, if you're trading Jordan Love after a year of just sitting on the bench behind Rodgers, I think they get at best a 3rd-round pick, because I don't think anyone was really that high on Jordan Love, and the Packers kind of screwed up jumping up and trying to take him. I think that they didn't have to do that last year when they did. So, I mean, listen to a team like the 49ers. They're offering you literally the number 3 pick in the draft today, and whatever else that they would be willing to throw at you to bring in an MVP like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, yeah, do you want to hand over another team in the NFC, basically the keys to the NFC for the next few years? Probably not, but at the same time, like, you drafted a quarterback last year. Listen to what they have to say, because you spent all that compensation on him. You know, make something happen. My thoughts on this whole thing, though, I mean, I'm a little surprised that San Francisco actually made a move like this. It was basically them just shooting their shot, really. Tom Pelissero corrected the entire thing when all this came out by basically stating that the 49ers just kind of shot their shot, inquired about Rodgers, but they never actually made a formal offer to him. Listen to what they have to say. That's what I think about that whole situation. I mean, when they're on the clock, I have a feeling that they'll probably maybe give Green Bay a call, or maybe Green Bay actually decides to reach out to them. And, you know, I mean, that ultimately burns down to, like, you know, did Green Bay do their due diligence and really study these quarterbacks coming out of the draft? I feel like they didn't, because they have Aaron Rodgers. They just drafted Jordan Love last year. You know, why would they be really scouting anything that has to do with quarterbacks? I mean, obviously, they're going to have the know of some things, but they probably weren't digging into quarterbacks the way some other teams were. So, I don't know. Who do the 49ers want, though? Trey Lance or Mac Jones? I personally think they want Trey Lance. That's kind of where I think the number 3 pick is going. I have a strong feeling it's going to be Trey Lance. I don't know why, but the fact that they were so all in on Mac Jones, or that's like what the rumor mill was saying, and then everything has slowly turned to Trey Lance, and people have become more and more confident with the Trey Lance thing. I'm not just jumping bandwagons here, but I have a feeling, just based off of the potential talent that Trey Lance exhibits, the arm strength he has is unreal. He's a very good decision maker. You know, from everything that I was looking at, he's a very solid guy. His film is very small, but I mean, you know, he doesn't. If they really do want to hang on to Jimmy G for another season, they have Jimmy G. Trey Lance can at least sit for a year, learn behind Jimmy G, let the game slow down for him a little bit, see how the whole NFL thing operates for a year. You know. And you have somebody like Kyle Shanahan, who has done really well with quarterbacks throughout his entire career as a coach. You know, this could be something that turns into money for them if they do end up going for somebody like Trey Lance. I just feel like Trey Lance fits the whole mold and situation a little bit better, because it really gives Kyle Shanahan an opportunity to take somebody who has the talent and has shown promise and really mold him into the quarterback that he wants him to be, athletically, physically, mentally, all that kind of stuff. You know, he can really turn him into his quarterback, which seems to be kind of what Kyle Shanahan is looking for. Now, beyond the San Francisco 49ers, picking right after them, or supposed to be picking right after them, is the Atlanta Falcons. So why are we bringing them up? Because the Atlanta Falcons hold like the keys to the rest of the draft at this point. Are they going after Kyle Pitts, which makes sense for them because they lost Austin Hooper this past offseason? Excuse me, but they lost Austin Hooper last offseason. They need a tight end. There's been a lot of back and forth conversation about whether they're going to actually end up moving Julio Jones. I know there's so much. It would have to be a post-June 1st move if they're going to move Julio Jones. I've been seeing a lot of people talk about, what if Julio Jones gets moved like during the next few days of these drafts? Well, the numbers don't really match up, because Atlanta takes a $23 million dead money hit on the cap if they trade him. Granted, you can spread that out over 2 years, but that's versus waiting until after the June 1st trade, not June 1st trade deadline, the June 1st flip for the salary cap when the new year for the salary cap starts up. And that number is only 7.75. So, I mean, you're looking at what, 23 million. So whatever the rough math is on that, like 12.5 million per year, as opposed to a 7.75, which is like, it'll cost them like 3.35 million or whatever over the next couple of years per season, like in dead cap money. So in my opinion, the likelihood of Julio Jones getting traded tonight and being a part of any trade package Probably not likely, but that 4th pick, man, there are a lot of people potentially gunning for that spot because it seems like everyone wants a quarterback now. Conversations of, the 7th and 8th picks being moved as well. The Lions are a potential team that could be moving. On top of that, the Panthers, they just got rid of Teddy Bridgewater. Some people are not 100% sold on whether, they're happy with their quarterback situation or not, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but there's a lot of picks after them that are potentially picks that people would be trading up for if the number 4 pick isn't available. So I'm assuming that Atlanta is going to be fielding calls because people are going to be enticing them. People seem to want these top 5 quarterbacks that are in this draft for one reason or another, whatever it may be. So if they're not going Kyle Pitts, I mean, you could see Atlanta moving back and pulling in a pretty high treasure trove of picks at a spot where typically you would not get as many picks for number 4. But this draft pretty much starts at the number 4 pick. So it's almost like having a number 1 because everyone that doesn't really care about a quarterback, is looking at you guys. So a lot of interest in the number 4 pick. The Falcons are in a tough spot. It's, the weird thing is their salary cap situation is what makes the whole thing interesting because right now, based off the draft picks they have, they won't even be able to sign everybody. So if the trading back scenario seems very realistic in that the further you trade back, the less money you're going to have to pay out that first round pick if they pick in the first round or if they decide to trade really far back, which I don't think they're going to do because they need a few pieces here and there on offense and defense. But everything is a very weird, slippery slope for Atlanta. There is so much going on with the Falcons right now as to whether they trade back or actually make a pick. For me at number 4, I personally think going for Kyle Pitts is probably the way to go for them just because you need a tight end. You lost Austin Hooper. This is a playmaker that you can line up with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley if they both stay there. Or not if they both stay there. Excuse me, if Julio Jones stay there. Calvin Ridley's not going nowhere. But there's just so much going on with the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, and on top of that, I mean, if they do decide to trade back, one thing to keep in mind, and, if they decide to, maybe collect some picks or maybe pick up picks even next year, apparently next year's draft is looking to be, a little bit more valuable in terms of just like what you can get out of it because players are going to have a whole actual season to play through. The scouting tape will actually be better. A lot of players in this draft are coming off of an entire year of not playing. So there's so many question marks in this draft that some people are actually looking at next year's draft as almost like a gold mine because you're going to get the actual scouting and everything that you really want. And, it's going to be a normal season essentially. So everyone's kind of like, oh, well, can't wait till next year's draft. So there's so much potential with that number 4 pick. There's a lot of teams that I could see gunning for that spot if they want a quarterback. I mean, the Broncos, even though they made the trade for Bridgewater, might still be in play for a quarterback. Panthers maybe. And then on top of that, teams that are later in the draft that might really need a quarterback. The Bears. I mean, who knows realistically what's going to go down with that pick, but the Falcons are in a really good spot. They're almost like the number 1 pick in the draft because we know quarterbacks are being taken 1 through 3. It's just a matter of who's it's going to be at number 3. And then from then on, the Falcons have picked number 1 on the clock of everybody else. They don't need a quarterback. They have Matt Ryan, and he should be good for at least a few more years, at least. Interesting to see what the Falcons will end up doing tonight. I have a feeling they're going to be making a pick. I don't know if trading back is the right answer, but if everyone's really valuing, next year's draft picks, if somebody's going to offer them something good for next year, I could definitely see that happening. Now, since we've brought up the Broncos and the Panthers like 17 times in that conversation, we can talk a little bit about them as well. So, Broncos traded a 6th-round pick for Teddy Bridgewater a couple of days ago. This is a pretty big move as well. The Broncos were able to basically maneuver a deal where they're going to be paying $3 million of Teddy Bridgewater's salary while the Panthers pay the other $7 million. That is the most bizarre thing I have ever heard because somehow the Panthers are paying more for a QB that might not even be playing, well, isn't going to be playing for them next year. And I don't really know how that works. I didn't even know you could do that in the NFL. That was a surprise to me. I did not know that was a thing. So do the Broncos still go after a QB with this trade happening now? That's kind of the biggest question I had from that. And I've talked to some other people about, curious to see what they thought. I actually have a friend who's a Broncos fan, and I was talking to him a little bit about it. There's still a possibility the way that looks. So for you Broncos fans out there, I wouldn't count out a quarterback. I think it's very unlikely though. But actually something I noted while I was going through my Twitter feed here, where is it? Where is this? I had this written up here. Oh, so there is this was per My Sports Update on Twitter. Apparently there is a strong perception that if the Broncos do go after a quarterback in this draft and they do pick somebody, if someone falls to them, because I don't think they'll move up. They might, maybe, but I don't think they would. If they do go after a quarterback, Drew Lock is probably going to be on the market. Then they have the veteran presence in Teddy Bridgewater, and then from there, whoever it is that they draft. If they decide to go a different route, then you're looking at, draft whatever other positional needs you may need, whether it's like an offensive lineman. Running back is something that I could see a possibility. Corner's another one for Denver. I haven't done too much research into what they need team needs wise, but that's just like a few things off the top of my head I do know that they could be looking at. But I mean, the whole situation with the quarterback there is kind of, it's still somewhat of a mystery, but for me personally, I think they're probably going to skip the quarterback thing. They're a little bit late in the top 10 to be trying to really go after a quarterback. I really don't see a quarterback past like pick number 8 still being on the board. Everyone just seems too quarterback happy in this draft, and I don't really buy anyone being outside the number 8 pick. Is it possible? Sure, but I don't really think so. So I'd say you're probably looking at them going after a key position. And on top of that, in Bridgewater's defense, did the season really go, in his favor? I want to say no, because the Panthers lost Christian McCaffrey, and they had some other injuries here and there throughout the season. A lot of people knock him for being 0-8 in when the games were on the line. He wasn't able to complete a single game-winning drive. So there are things to, kind of knock Teddy Bridgewater on, and I can understand where people are coming from in that whole situation. But at the same time, there is stuff to look at on the flip side. They're playing in a tough division with the Saints and the Panthers. You're now going to the AFC West, which doesn't really help because you have the Chiefs and potentially even the Chargers really kicking it in a high gear. And so that's like two teams that are really contending. Who really knows what the Raiders are going to be doing? But I mean, Denver's a team that everyone kind of assumes is like a quarterback and another piece or two away from really being a contender. And that's like the feel that they have in Denver as well. So, Teddy Bridgewater could be a solid bridge guy for them. Obviously, I don't think he's the answer, but he could be a solid guy that can at least hold things off until maybe next year's draft. And if things really don't go well, it'll put him in prime position to pick whoever the top quarterback is, if that's like Sam Howell or somebody else that's supposed to be coming out next year. Now, for the Panthers, does this take them out of the quarterback conversation? Because the Panthers are also a team that were kind of rumored here and there to be going after a quarterback. They've picked up fifth-year options for a few other players here and there, but not for Sam Darnold. Now, when Sam Darnold got traded, it came out as a report that they were going to pick up his fifth-year option, but that still has not happened. I actually even reported that, well, not reported it, but I mentioned that in the show when that actually happened, So I was like, oh, all right, the Panthers are all in, they're committing the next 2 years to Sam Darnold, and then picking up a fifth-year option, I believe it's like 18 mil or whatever he's supposed to get for that fifth-year option. So I was like, wow, okay, this is a lot of money. They're actually going to go in on Sam Darnold, but they actually have not done that. So now it leaves the question of, okay, they got rid of Teddy Bridgewater. They have Sam Darnold. Could they still, at the number 8, have somebody fall to them? It's a matter of who's actually going to be there at number 8. So like I just previously mentioned, I think the Broncos are right outside the window of a quarterback falling to them. I would be shocked for quarterbacks, those top 5 at least, to be sitting there outside of that number 8 spot. And that's where the Panthers fall, at the number 8. So I think it's a matter of, if a quarterback they really like is there. I don't know if they're high on Mac Jones, but Trey Lance and Justin Fields seem like two guys that they are somewhat interested in. So if that's the route they go, if let's say, by some way Justin Fields is sitting there at number 8, I have a strong feeling that they would probably pull the trigger and pull him in, and they'd have Justin Fields and Sam Darnold on the roster. And the idea would be have Sam Darnold start, see how he does with the weapons around, and then they can kind of go from there. But if things don't work out, you always have Justin Fields waiting in the wing behind him. If it doesn't float out that way and they end up, with having no actual quarterback of interest waiting for them at number 8, then they're probably going to go offensive tackle or, whatever it is team needs wise that they actually need to be going after. They'll probably just address that with that pick there, or even potentially trade back if somebody offers them a really good deal, because, we're going to see a string of offensive players, it seems like, in these first few rounds of the draft. So at that point, the Panthers will probably either look to trade back because they're looking for something a little bit later. That, and if like, I know because Penei Sewell's on their radar, Rashawn Slater is, I think, somebody also on their radar as well. If both those guys aren't there, you could probably trade back a handful of picks, maybe like to 11, 12, 13, 14, and still get somebody like Darisaw or some of those like higher up offensive tackles, because they do need a tackle. So it's a matter of circumstance really with how that all goes for them. But I mean, man, like the mixed bag when you look at the top 10 of this draft is just like, I don't understand how people are really doing mock drafts right now, in my personal opinion. It's just like mock drafts have to be all over the place right now. And with the Aaron Rodgers thing coming out earlier today, like that has probably thrown a wrench in some things. There's got to be teams calling Green Bay being like, what would it take? And again, if Aaron Rodgers really wants out of there, and he has told the team a handful of times, I don't want to be here. The Packers drafted a quarterback last year, trading up into the first round for one. Put your money where your mouth is, get rid of Rodgers, and then bring in, a boatload of picks at that. You're going to get like 2 first-rounders this year. You could build an even better team than you have now around Jordan Love. And if it fails, you have so many picks going through the later periods of well, not later periods, but like the later drafts coming up, like 2022 and 23. I mean, I don't know if Jordan Love is the answer post Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, but you spent the capital for him. You pushed up into the draft for him. Make a move. I don't mean to sound like I'm preaching for Aaron Rodgers here, but like just, Green Bay, do something. You have like a potential 4 first-round picks coming your way, 5 first-round picks. Why wouldn't New York offer that? I don't know. They need a quarterback, and I understand Zach Wilson could be the future, but like Aaron Rodgers is the MVP of the league right now. What a wild draft. This has got to be one of the most exciting drafts for me personally that I have seen in, I would say 15 to some odd years that I've been following the NFL since I got into watching football. I'm so excited for tonight. I decided I wasn't going to do anything really like mock drafty or anything like that, because I've always been kind of under the assumption that like mock drafts are a guessing game. Unless you're somebody who's like a legitimate insider, I mean, you don't ever really know what's going on in that draft. It's like a stroke of guessing, to be completely honest with you. And this year more than ever with the way everything looks. But I did decide to put something together, since the whole top 5 picks of the draft, 6 picks of the drafts, or even the top 8 picks of the draft have so much quarterback carousel talk going on. I decided to put together a little bit of a list, and I would like to see what you guys think in the comment section down below. What order do you think the quarterbacks are going to be going in this NFL draft? We have, at this point, 2 hours and 18 minutes until round 1, pick number 1 kicks off. The order to my left is how I believe the quarterbacks are going to go. At number 1, I have Trevor Lawrence. At number 2, Zach Wilson. Those 2 guys, I think, at this point have been set in stone for quite a while. At number 3, I have Trey Lance going, and I believe he's going to be going to the 49ers. At number 4, I'm looking at Justin Fields going off the board. And then at number 5, I have Mac Jones. Now, I don't necessarily know where Justin Fields and Mac Jones are going to be going, but these 5 quarterbacks are the guys that everyone's hot on. I think they'll be gone within the first 8 picks of this year's draft. I would be shocked to see any of these 5 guys slip out of the top 8, but that's the order I expect them to go in. Trey Lance has had a really big surge in popularity, and I have a feeling that based off everything that's been said, what I've read, and just kind of how the 49ers were initially about things and now how they are, I have a feeling that they've decided Trey Lance is going to be the guy. And I think Trey Lance is going to be number 3. And if they don't take Mac Jones, because they were the team that was kind of married to Mac Jones initially when they traded up to that number 3 spot, I have a feeling Jones might slip behind Justin Fields. So that's my order. We got Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and then Mac Jones 1 through 5 in that order. That's how I see the quarterbacks going. But outside of that, that is pretty much everything I got for you guys today. 2 hours, 15 minutes till the draft goes off. I'm excited for it. I hope you guys are as well. We'll have tons of content coming your way. post-draft reactions, discussions, breakdowns, who's made the best picks, who's made the worst picks, things like that. All that and more coming your way only here on the Greeks Gridiron. I am your host, Ethan Hristodoulou. Thank you all for watching, everybody, and have a good draft night, and I'll catch you guys next week on Monday, same time, same place.